We'll call this meeting of the Board of Supervisors, Ventura County, for July 23rd, 2013. Could you do the roll call, please?
Supervisor Bennett?
Here.
Supervisor Parks? Here. Supervisor Long? Supervisor Zaragoza?
Here.
And Supervisor Foy?
Here. And Supervisor Long will not be with us today. I would, for our moment of inspiration, would like to call Mary Mack, Executive Director of Ventura County, or the CASA, the Court-Appointed Special Advocates for Children, so she's here. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. I'm Miriam Mack. I'm the Executive Director of CASA of Ventura County. We're court-appointed special advocates. We're a nonprofit organization that recruits, screens, trains, and supervises volunteers who become sworn officers of the court and then advocate for a child in the court-dependent system who has been appointed to our program by the juvenile judge. We're one of 950 programs across the country, and we've operated in Ventura County since 1985. And I'm very grateful to Chairman Foy for inviting me here today because it gives me a chance to tell you about CASA. And I'm hopeful that I'm just a fraction as inspiring and impactful as are the stories that I hear from our advocates every day. First of all, why do we even need advocates when we have hardworking, dedicated professionals in the court system and human services in the schools? And the reason is that there needs to be one person to stand with the child in court, to stick with the child during her time in foster care, and to speak only for that child's best interests. And if as a result of the advocate's work, that child's time in foster care can be reduced by even 1 month, then public resources are freed up for other critical needs. There's a statistic on the county's website that really says it all. And what it says is that 42% of the children in the court-dependent system are going to experience 3 or more placements during the 2 years that they're there. And what that means is that not only are their placements changing, their neighborhoods are changing, their schools are changing, their social workers rotate in and out, and the only constant in that child's life is often the advocate. So, what is the advocate? Is the advocate a friend? Is the advocate a mentor? Well, here are just a couple of examples. I was talking last week to an advocate who had been assigned a 17-and-a-half-year-old boy who was about to drop out of high school. And that advocate got an app from the school district, put it on the phone, and tracked that kid every time he missed class. And he was on that kid, and that kid, happy ending, actually graduated from high school in June.
He didn't give up his phone.
He didn't. There was another case where an advocate had a child who was removed from the home because of neglect, and the advocate realized that that mother had a handicap and needed adaptive services, and so the advocate worked with the social worker and brought those services to the child and to the family, and hopefully that child can be reunited. But the most important job of the advocate is to be there. And so I'm going to read to you a very small quote that was in a court report this month. And it was from an advocate who was writing about her boy who was under 10 years old. And she said that portion of it, she says, he's had a very sad life filled with insecurity. He has had over 8 moves and has not been in the same place more than a few months in the last 2 years. Most of the time his feelings manifest themselves in tantrums and aggression, which makes placement very difficult. But he seems to be continually surprised when his placement changes, but I still show up to see him. And so the inspiration that I take from this has to do with constancy and steadfastness, and I hope it has some applicability to you who have to work through such long processes on behalf of the public. And so there's actually a quote that I found in The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak, in those little sections that he writes. He says, "A definition not found in the dictionary, not leaving. An act of trust and love, often deciphered by children." So I will leave you with that, but not before I have a chance to say that I did give the clerk a little save the date card. Our friends of CASA, who we depend on most gratefully, are sponsoring a fabulous pop-up dining event October 12th in the afternoon I hope you're all invited. I hope you save the date. And it's certainly my honor and privilege to have been here to address you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And it's just amazing what you do and what the stories you're telling like that.
Thank you.
Saving these children. Can you do the Pledge of Allegiance for us?
I'd be happy to.
Everyone stand, please.
Please stand, place your hand over your heart, repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Foy,
Yes.
I just wanted to say that the CASAs, when you think about the one element that's really missing for most children in the system is just having the constancy of an adult in their life. And so I just pass on the board's appreciation to all the CASAs when you get a chance, please. Thank you very much.
And an encouragement for others to volunteer, because I know we need lots of volunteers. Thank you for what you do.
And Mr. Sherry, thank you so much for coming over and sharing the information with us. It's extremely important. And I'll put this in my calendar.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam.
A very productive meeting.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out. Thanks. All right. Then let's move on to our minutes of course, it's July 22nd. It's only last week. Couldn't be any later.
Move approval.
We've been done for a week. Jeez, we've been waiting on us, I know. The efficiency around here is just unbelievable. Let's get this done by 9. Here we go.
All right.
We have agenda review. Sir.
Thank you, Chair Foy. Just a few items on agenda page 4, title only. Item 12, Healthcare Agency has been modified to Healthcare Agency Behavioral Health. Item number 5, minutes obviously have been distributed and posted. Item 30, closed session conference with legal counsel has been added to the addendum agenda, as well as item 31, CEO's Office adoption of a resolution to establish one classification and salary range for forensic accountants, effective August 4, 2013. There's a revised resolution that has been distributed and posted, and that's it.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? No? Do we have a motion on the agenda as modified?
So moved.
Okay. A second. We can all vote. And then we have our consent agenda. Any questions on that? So that's 10 through 18.
Move approval.
Move approval. There we go. We can move some of our executive staff out of there quickly. All right. That's great. Wonderful. See, as soon as we do that, they all leave us. I guess, yeah. Beach is calling. All right. So we have public comments. Do we have any public cards? 1, 2. Statement card here. All right. So we'll start off with William Terry.
Good morning, Chairman Foy and board
Morning,
members and staff. Bill Terry, I live in Oxnard. And I want to say a moment of inspiration, our youth need stability. I wanted to address a problem, and we've been working, not only me, but years before, Gene Harris, Ramon Bruce, to preserve Ormond Beach and to protect the endangered species, the least tern and the snow plovers and other species that migrate because Ormond Beach is on the Pacific Flyway. And we have endangered species there. The problem we have now is that there's a company, Agament, that's on Arnold Road. They started out taking in green waste. In the last, recently, they started taking in food scraps, which attract a lot of seagulls. And that picture is just a slow day. Usually you can go out there, and I happen to have a camera that day. And most of the time you can go out there and those piles are covered with seagulls. And seagulls are scavengers. And during the nesting period started in April of the least tern and the snow republic. We had a few nests at that time, but recently, because of the seagulls, they've abandoned the nests and they've moved on. And I think that Aggerman, because they've changed their operation from green waste to food waste, is creating a problem. And we've been trying, and you can go down there, and we have visitors from around the world that come to Ormond Beach to study the birds that's down there. And you can't hardly stand the stench from the rotten food waste. And if no more, I think that Aggerman should do an EIR to show the detriment that they're doing to the Ormond Beach, which we're trying to preserve along with Coastal Conservancy has invested a lot of money and time into attempting to rehabilitate Ormond Beach. And thank you for your time.
Mr. Terry, can I just ask,
Yes.
has your organization or you had any conversations with Aggerman about their practices?
I understand that they've sent out whatever you do to start getting accessing a permit that's showing that they're going to increase their food scraps.
But no conversations with them yet? Okay.
No.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, you know, that's over in Arnold Road, right, in Oxford?
Yes.
Off of Weneme Road.
It's on Arnold Road.
It's off of Weneme, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things, just a recommendation to have staff work with Bill, you know, and with Aggerman, excuse me, and see what we can do for that. Because this is under Kathy Long's district, but I know exactly what you're talking about. But I can, you know.
And my experience is Aggerman's been pretty responsive when we've
Yeah, I was
approached them
gonna
about
say,
some other
usually
things. So that's why I wanted to find
responsive.
out. I think we'll certainly there'll be conversations. We'll see if we can get after this. Talk to Supervisor
Well,
Long.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. We will follow up.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
It's always a good, people bring things to our attention. I appreciate it.
That's right.
Mr. Thayer.
Morning. I'll skip ahead to Aggerman. Good call on that one. So Aggerman sells good dirt for gardening. And that's awesome that they have good dirt for gardening, but I think the county could give it away. So the county could have its trash collection services that already exist do the job that Aggerman does, which is let vegetable material sit and decompose. Vegetable material is going to sit and decompose somewhere. According to this gentleman, it's not good to have it near the seagulls. I can hear that. So the county could provide a patch of land where the vegetable material from the residents of the county could send, it could go there and sit and decompose, and then anyone could come and pick up good quality garden soil anytime they need to. There could be many different sections of varying levels of materials along the decomposition process, and I'm sure volunteers would staff it if they get free soil. Soil is expensive, and I want lots of people to be able to grow food, so if the county could provide free soil by replacing what Aggerman does and getting it out of his backyard, that'd be great. Art Walk this weekend was very successful. Thanks for putting the clock right here. I appreciate that. Art Walk was successful for the people selling booze. I don't know if the artists sold any art, but the people selling booze certainly sold booze. And, by the way, there's no public transit that goes from Ventura County to Los Angeles County, so anyone in Los Angeles that likes art would have had to either come here and drink the booze that was going down everyone's throats and then drive home, or would have had to skip Art Walk. So Art Walk would have been more successful if there were adequate public transportation that gets people from Los Angeles County to Ventura County at an affordable price, and the transit needs to run late. Speaking of things running late, bathroom access is a human right and should be available 24 hours a day, because if you need to use a bathroom in the middle of the night and the bathroom's closed, what are you going to do? Shower access is a human right, and showers need to be provided by the county and by the individual cities for homeless people to use if they need to, because then they can be clean and then they can get on with their lives. Food is a human right, and as I mentioned, community gardening is really important to me, and so I think that if the county did a better job of facilitating community gardening for everyone, then food security would be the case in Ventura County. We have great dirt here, especially if vegetable material is decomposed and put into the dirt. So we should utilize the space that we have, the wonderful sunshine and temperatures that we have, and grow more food here in Ventura County and feed everyone in Ventura County. Robert Ramirez and Alfonso Limon were murdered by Oxnard Police Department. Make sure that stuff doesn't happen again. Last weekend, the VC sheriff shot and killed someone who allegedly had a gun. I went down to the winery and talked to the folks there, and he kind of had no comment, but he told the story a little bit about how it happened, and he didn't really see if the guy had a gun or not. So I'm really interested in seeing that police car video to see if he really did point a gun at those officers. I want to know what happened that day when that man lost his life. Offshore drilling and fracking are a bad recipe together. Let's get both of them out of here, because fracking causes earthquakes. It caused an earthquake that damaged the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. And so if it can damage the Washington Monument, then fracking up in Ojai could potentially damage the oil drilling towers in the Santa Barbara Channel, and that could potentially spill a bunch of oil in these Channel Islands that we're supposed to protect because they have species that only exist there. We need to ask the Obama administration to drop all charges against Bradley Manning and Edward Snowden, because all they did was expose secrets that the United States should not have been keeping from its people. And that's all for now, guys. Have a great week. See you next time.
Thank you. Okay, move on to board comments, Supervisor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share a couple of comments. I just want to share that last week I attended a welcome event for Rigo Vargas, our new public health director in downtown Oxnard, and that was well attended by many individuals, and we were commended here on the board for hiring and promoting such a good person like Rigo Vargas, and there was well attended welcome. And also on Saturday, I had my chief of staff, Stan Higgs, attended the Relay for Life for the cancer survivors at Oxnard High School. I had to attend another little event that I couldn't make it. And Tracy and I continue to work with the MAC over in El Rio, the Municipal Advisory Council, and it's really doing a lot of good work and sharing concerns from the unincorporated area of El Rio and Nyland. Additionally, I had Lourdes from my staff also attend the California Conservation Corps graduation. We had about 13 graduates that graduated from the Conservation Corps, and the theme of the graduation was changing lives one at a time. So they were really very happy that we were there. It was too bad that Supervisor Long is not here, but I'm sure that probably Martina is listening to this. I'd just like to commend Supervisor Long and Martine Hernandez, her chief of staff, for setting up the tattoo removal program in Oxnard and Santa Paula. It's my understanding that that program started in Santa Paula about 14 years ago. But I had the opportunity to actually witness a removal of tattoos. I went over Saturday morning in Oxnard at Las Islas Clinic in Oxnard, and there was numerous individuals that were assisted in removing tattoos. And I just got a little information from Martine and also some of the doctors. This started based on the input over in Santa Paula back in 1999 to have tattoos removed from individuals that could not find jobs, or they reduced their opportunities to find jobs, and also to leave gangland styles and lifestyles, and to set a positive example for the younger kids by removing tattoos. And all of us probably regret, now as young kids, for having a tattoo, putting that tattoo on ourselves, and it's very, very difficult to get rid of it. But they set up a partnership, a public-private partnership that's really helped to change the lifestyles of unwanted tattoos for individuals. And the payment is 40 hours of community service to individuals that go out there and have a tattoo removed. So the charge is 40 hours of community service, and they've done a lot of good work. I had the opportunity of actually talking to people in line, and this is a diverse group of individuals. A mother from Santa Paula that took his son there, and he wanted the tattoo removed. A young lady that had children, had a tattoo, and the kids wanted a tattoo because she had one. So she says, no, she's going to remove that tattoo because the children, she's a role model, and she figures if I remove that tattoo, they won't want a tattoo. And it was just the benefits that are gained by removing the tattoos is tremendous. So I just wanted to thank individuals there like Dr. Neil Jorgensen, if I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, and Dr. Kristen Scholl, is that correct? And especially Dr. Kenny Finger, he was the one that was there. These individuals are individuals that do this free of charge. And he actually had me out there and he showed me exactly how we had to put on some goggles, and actually I saw how they use a laser to remove those tattoos. It's phenomenal what they do. And also, of course, I wanted to thank Martin Hernandez. He was very instrumental, and he was one of the coordinators in that. And Todd McDonald, he's an individual that's spent about 10 years helping the kids remove tattoos. And his son, Michael, also is there too. Just free volunteer, and we have many, many volunteers. For example, we had also Maria Delgadito, I understand is also a county employee. And also the young lady by the name of Elena Gutierrez. She works at VCMC admin, and she works at the trauma center. And I asked her, what are you doing here, Maria? She says, well, I'm giving time for the community to help out, to help these individuals, and I'm not getting paid for it. And numerous other young ladies that were there and individuals said, I just want to commend them for an excellent job. And the majority, I talked to the people in Stanton Lane too, and some of the people were there because if they want to join the military, you cannot have any tattoos below your wrist. So they need to get rid of those tattoos in order to be accepted in the military. So they were there for military reasons, for children reasons, for employment reasons, and health. And some doctors and some clinics and hospitals will not hire somebody that has a tattoo in their hands and so forth. So it's really a great program. So I just wanted to come in. It's too bad that commend Supervisor Long and Martin Hernandez for setting up this program 14 years ago in Santa Paula, and now 2 years in Oxnard. And I just wanted to share that it's really a great program. And some of those tattoos that those folks have, one young man had a tattoo here. It said, to my wife or something. He says, I love my wife, but now I want to get rid of it because I need to support her. But those kind of information and sharing that was given to me, but I just wanted to share that was there with them. Dr. Finger is just fantastic, and McDonald just absolutely. So Martin, if you're listening to it, thank you so much, and Supervisor Long. And also I have this individual that I'd like to adjourn in memory of. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Supervisor.
Thank you. You see they've got television shows about getting tattoos. They should have one about getting rid of tattoos. Set them right.
And I want to share something that my understanding is that to get a tattoo hurts a little bit, but to remove it is about 10,000 times the pain. So
yeah, it's more macho to get rid of them. Huh? Just wanted to make a couple of comments. Mr. Thayer, who isn't here, was talking about making compost free. The Las Virgenes Municipal Water District does provide compost for free, and they are in a joint powers authority with an agency here in Ventura County, and so residents can pull up and get free compost, and you can call in advance. Also, we're looking at issues regarding fracking, and as we see our hazardous materials discharge summary report that we get regularly, this week we have one that has two different discharges, one with petroleum, another one with acidic wastewater. So just kind of reminding us how many accidents or incidents, as they refer to them, occur regularly at these treatment places. And then also, I wanted to, you were attending a MAC meeting. We have 3 MAC meetings this week in my district, and Santa Rosa Valley had a good meeting, but in Casa Caneo and Newberry Park, we had the fortune of having Jim Delberding, as well as Elizabeth Cameron, come and talk about code enforcement. We've had issues there with a neon blinking sign on someone's front lawn, so the MAC and residents were very interested in learning about how that's being dealt with. And then this evening, we have our own Dave Fleisch coming to the Oak Park Municipal Advisory Council to talk about the new Canaan shuttle that's going to be in operation soon. And we're very excited about that and getting the word out and seeing that be successful. So I'm really happy to see that. And I would also ask that we close in honor of the people on this list, and including on that list we have Frank Capel, a Korean War veteran, and also John Staton, who's a World War II veteran, and Moscow Davis, who is a retired from the Los Angeles Police Department. I know all these folks are going to be very much missed by their loved ones and all those who knew them, and ask that we close in honor of them, and that completes my
Thank you. Supervisor.
Thank you very much. First, Supervisor Long, missing today. I think we have a number of things, but Supervisor Long and I both were able to attend the Housing Trust Fund fundraiser that was held in Camarillo this past weekend, and it was a screening of the Oscar award-winning film Innocent, about a homeless girl and her challenges dealing with homelessness. And one of the most moving evenings, certainly, in county experience. There were 250 people there. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Innocent herself was there and was able to address the crowd. Supervisor Long moderated it. It's a great program, and just a real reminder of what our mission is here, in county government, which is, the health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of Ventura County. And the homeless children that are experiencing the same thing that Innocent was experiencing are certainly, if that doesn't motivate you to push for good government here and stuff, I don't know what would. So it was really, I want to congratulate it was the first fundraiser for the Housing Trust Fund, and it was very successful. So I want to congratulate them. I'd like to adjourn in memory of the people on this list and call out Frida McWhorter, the wife of longtime mayor of Ventura, John McWhorter, and then somebody from the county family, Ray Marie Ainsworth. She worked for Ventura County's assessor's office for 27 years, retired in 2007. She's survived by her husband Richard and daughters Laura and Melissa. And then I'd like to take a special moment and ask for, particularly if there's anybody listening in county government, on your on the computer and on our sound system and stuff. But we've had a gentleman in this boardroom. He comes almost every year that we have all the foster children when they come in, and we talk about how much fun that day is when all the foster children show up here. His name is Matt Becker, and we've called him out a couple times. Matt has adopted 4 young boys from our foster care program, and has 2 other foster children, 2 other spots. You can take up to 6. So he's adopted 4, and he's had 2 rotating through. And when they're here in this room, it's, like I said, one of the most joyful days that we have here. But today, I just want to let you know, Matt Becker needs some help. Matt he's the president of the executive board of Summit School, where his kids go to school. He was named Father of the Year in Oakview in 2006. And this weekend, he held one of those boys in his arms while the boy passed away. And Aiden, Matt took him at 12 days, and he was identified as medically fragile. Doctors didn't think that he would be able to have a very productive life, and under Matt's loving care and the therapist, he was able to thrive and develop much more than everybody expected in this home. If you can imagine this home of 6 boys and Matt, it's a remarkable place. Matt has some significant expenses just with the cremation of Aiden. and it just happened this weekend, and we're trying to raise some funds. We're looking for $800 to try to not have that be an additional expense that Matt has to deal with. And so I have a plea out there. If anybody, and it's up on the screen, if you miss it and just want to review this of the boardroom, you can drop a check off at my office. You can mail a check to Friends of Oakview Park and Resource Center, 555 Mahoney Street in Oakview, 93022. But we talk about these foster children being our extended family. And if we had this kind of tragedy hit a young boy and a dad who is already stretching to try to take care of 6 boys and handle all this stuff, to the extent that we can step forward as a county family, it would, I think, be a great thing for us to do. So again, if you have any questions about this, but Matt Becker is a grieving father, and regardless of this, I hope we can all keep Matt Becker and his 5 other boys that are in his house right now in our prayers here this week and stuff. Thank you very much.
Some things you just don't want to know about, right? That's really tough. Well, that's tough. Appreciate you doing this, though, to help them out. Yeah, that's great. Not much to say after that. I don't know. And some people just give their lives to help others, and it's just right. Thanks for that story. Thanks for that story. I don't have anybody to adjourn a memory of. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to say that today. And I was just looking at some of these things of Simi Moore Park, and some of those things came out of some of the safest cities again. But it's interesting how they're using social media to help through that. The young people getting through how to report different things, and it's just nice that we live in a community that has things like that happen, but we're still in a safe area to live, and we're in a blessed place to be around. So, anyway, just my comments. We'll move on. Thank you. There it is, 27. Okay. That's something I'm excited about.
Good morning, Chair Foy, members of the board, Mr. Powers, Rigoberto Vargas, Public Health Director. The item before you is to ask that your board please consider allowing the Public Health Director to sign a contract agreement with Covered California. It is a ratification due to a late application process for us to go after those grant funds. It's also to ask that you allow us to establish 4 fixed-term positions for the duration of this grant, which is 18 months, 18-month period, $700,000. A good portion of it subcontracted out to 5 community partners that were also interested in applying for this grant and partnered with Public Health to go after the funds. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Let me just ask, so the grant's to go out there and do what?
To do outreach and education, to inform potentially eligible populations about the different options that are going to be available to them.
That's for the uninsured?
Yes, the uninsured.
And what makes it, I just struggle with these education issues, because there's so much money like this that can go to help pay for people doing a whole lot of other things. These people know we just struggle with that. So, okay, I understand what you're asking. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I'll second the motion and just want to congratulate you also.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Rigo.
Thank you.
I would have liked to have attended the event, but I had a MAC meeting.
That's right.
Okay. So, that's just 3-1. We need, can't get 4/5. Need a 4/5. Need to bring it back maybe later. Somebody else can bring it back. Okay. We'll move on to number 28. Supervisor Bennett has an item here.
There we go. Thank you very much, Supervisor Foy. This is a board letter. A few months ago, I brought forward to the board the idea of the county trying to help pull together efforts in terms of the expansion of broadband to try to make sure we're as competitive as possible here in Ventura County. That's certainly crucial to business. And Mike Pettit is here, and I thought this would be an opportunity to get an update from Mike in terms of the efforts of the county. But it's pretty exciting, and I think it is really significant for businesses in Ventura County. Particularly with all the streaming video and things like that, if we can be a cutting-edge area there, it's just another example of high-wage, high-skilled jobs in an area where we have a high quality of life. So, Mike, thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair Foy, members of the board, Mike Pettit, CIO. Well, we've been working actively to establish some broadband governance and development in Ventura County. As you know, broadband is important for economic growth in the county, for educational development, entertainment, health care, public safety, and even environmental preservation. About 6 months ago, I began working with the Economic Development Collaborative in Ventura County to start a coalition in Ventura County to help govern broadband growth and development. And I'm pleased to report that we've gained a lot of traction in that effort. We have loosely formed a coalition. The Economic Development Collaborative and now your board is urging the California Public Utilities Commission to open up another round of funding so we can form a consortia. That funding will help us set a strategy for developing broadband in Ventura County, identifying areas of need and prioritizing the development to focus on economic development and growth in Ventura County. Just some statistics on that. In the years 2013 and 14, over 500 million tablets will be sold. That's more tablets than there are people in the United States. So it gives you an idea for the impact of internet access on business, commerce, development, of education, and everything that we do. In some areas of the world, countries are considering internet access as a basic human right. So it's a reflection of the new world that we find ourselves
Lucas will point that out to us soon, I'm sure. Right.
Yes. So there's a lot of potential. We know that this is an ongoing project for the county because it will continue to be an area of importance for all of the services that the county provides, but also for businesses and also private citizens. As I mentioned, we've been working together with the Economic Development Collaborative. Also, a number of meetings have happened with private businesses that can participate in this group as well. And then the next phase, we're seeking to join in with some civic involvement as well to get help identify priorities for areas of our communities that don't have significant broadband access today, and being able to build that out in the future to better serve them. So with this letter, we are also preparing a plan to be able to prioritize broadband build-out in and throughout Ventura County into some of the underserved areas. This is one aspect of funding through the California Public Utilities Commission. There are quite a number of avenues of funding available for broadband development through the federal government and through our state government. So this group that we've loosely formed and we're solidifying right now is going to seek other opportunities to prioritize that development in Ventura County. So appreciate your board's support, and I hope to have some other exciting news in the future here for funding that we've received awards on, and seek your board's approval to use those funding, that funding to expand broadband in Ventura County.
Yes.
Chairman Foy, if I could, first I just want to point out to Mr. Powers or the other board members the infectious enthusiasm that Mike has for all the projects that he's tackled for us. But when he comes into my office and we're talking broadband, you can just see he really is passionate about making this really a genuine effort here. Second thing I just want to point out, yesterday the New York Times had an article about economic mobility and how in some places in the country, low-income children have a pretty good shot at being able to move to the upper class, and in other parts they don't. And a lot of it is a function of their access to good education. And in Ventura County, if we have really good broadband, one of the things we can do is make our education system more accessible to low-income kids.
Yeah, right.
And so I think that certainly we want to have that be one of our pushes, to make sure that broadband helps level the playing field and keep those opportunities open for everybody, and not let kids be trapped or anybody else be trapped and stuff. So it is, in the long run, just after coming back from Europe, it is a right over in Europe. I mean, we joked about it a little bit, but it's going to be, as fundamental as anything else in terms of your economic survival is going to depend upon your ability to access the internet and all of that information and training and everything else that's going to be out there. So I hope we can continue to stay after this, and that these efforts are going to be really successful. Thank you very much.
No, I appreciate you bringing this. This is the business community that I deal with, and they look at cities, counties, what are they doing to attract us in the sense of this kind of thing, and the effective efficiencies that these businesses have by this kind of stuff. It's it's very, very expensive, and there's going to be places where I don't want to come there because there's not this ability.
Exactly, and studies have shown that communities with higher broadband access have lower unemployment rates, higher graduation rates and educational rates. We just heard in the moment of inspiration how a smartphone was instrumental in keeping an individual in school.
Yeah.
So, and then also increased civic involvement. So communities that are plugged in tend to be more active in the society.
Yeah.
So,
no. Appreciate what you're doing, and he is infectious. But thank you, Supervisor, for bringing this.
Mr. Chair, I also want to thank you because all agencies is now going wireless. The IRS, the DMV, the health, the community, and we need that broadband. We need the computers. We need the computers to communicate. Banking is now going in that direction too. So after a while, you won't be able to write a check anymore. They won't accept money anymore. So maybe
right.
just a credit card or so
right.
forth. But I think that's the future.
And it is. Mobile devices are incredibly important for economic. For sales, individuals on mobile devices spend on average 50% more with businesses than non-connected individuals. So it is an important stat in our economic development as well.
We got to tell people, watch out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Look forward to hearing more. Okay, let's move on to item number 29. 29, which is going to be our adoption of a resolution. This is going to come from our county council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Item 29 is a proposed amendment to the land use hearing rules resolution, and it deals with the specific issue of allowing for individual members of a hearing body. This would be the Board of Supervisors or the Planning Commission in a land use hearing context. To conduct a site visit at a relevant site on their own under limited conditions. The issues that are involved in this are due process fair hearing issues, and that's the reason for the limitation on the ability to visit a site or obtain information outside of a hearing record. And in the past, certain board members and planning commission members have expressed the desire to at least have a site visit if they don't receive evidence other than just the viewing of the site. And the purpose of this proposal is to allow that to happen. The board previously had given direction to formally bring back language to amend the rule, and We've tried to do that without, complicating other parts of the rule. And I can explain how it interacts with the rest of the land use hearing rules. So the language that we've proposed is addressing sections 11 and 12 of this land use hearing resolution, and section 12 is the key. Currently, the language allows for the body to go under a Brown Act agendized visit, so it would be as a group to a site, and the amended language allows for individual members to go and to have limited direction from a staff member or a landowner, basically just pointing out features of the land and operations, but not hearing other types of evidence. As long as they report that at the beginning of a subsequent land use hearing, that they make it clear on the record that they had the site visit and what they observed. That required some amendment to section 11, which is the general prohibition against obtaining information outside the record. So the only change to section 11 proposed is that it articulates this exception, except for site visits consistent with the section 12. I know there are a lot of other issues with the land use hearing rules that we've looked at over the years and talked with RMA, and there could be subsequent clarifications and improvements, but just to accomplish this goal of getting this one exception in writing is the reason that we're bringing this just separately on this item alone. And I can answer any questions you might have.
So if we do go to a site and investigate the site and look at it, then when that meeting comes up, then we have to announce that we went out to the site and visited that site.
That's correct.
As part of the Brown Act.
Well, that's part of the due process rule. The Brown Act would allow you to go as a body.
Okay.
And so it's really not a Brown Act issue exactly, but the legal framework of it is that either the Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors is acting as a quasi-court in this situation. So in the same way that a judge is limited to the evidence received on the record, so is the hearing body. And the reason for that is it's not fair to the participants in the hearing if the person making the decision is relying on evidence outside the record, because the participants don't know that they even need to address that evidence or rebut it. So the disclosure part of this is, see, a judge could never do this in a regular trial. But because it's not strictly a trial, the cases have allowed that due process is served if an administrative body like this, if individuals receive some evidence outside the record, as long as they disclose it at the hearing. So the reason you have to disclose it is the due process law, so that the participants can address that. Usually it's innocuous, but suppose you learn something really important outside the record, they have to be able to address that. Now the Brown Act comes into it is currently this rule allows a majority of the whole body to go to the site en masse. Now to do that, you have to agendize that visit as a meeting.
And announce it too.
And announce it and publish the agenda, and it's very cumbersome. It's hard to do. And then members of the public can come and observe. They actually, you open a meeting at the site, you call the meeting to order, and members, it'd be like this group deciding to hop on the bus and go out to the site, and the public can come. So this is an exception to that, and it's not individuals can just go, and as long as they announce on the record when the hearing convenes that they took the trip and what they saw, et cetera.
Are you limited to what you can do there? Who you talk to, or you just have to say what you did, who you talk to, or when you announce?
Yes, you are limited to what you can do there. The rule as drafted tries to articulated in that you basically can have a tour guide and point out the features of the land and operations. Let's suppose it's a mining operation or something. They can describe the machinery and what it does, but basically just pointing it out like a tour guide would do. To go beyond that is really to receive substantive information, not just someone who's guiding you so you can understand what you're looking at. Because the further you go away from just a site visit, now you're receiving really testimonial type evidence. In the real problems in the cases, and the real problem in real life is if you and this is all triggered once an application is on file. So when there's a hearing application, whether it's an appeal, a petition, an application that's in the county system for a land use hearing, once that's triggered, and there have been occasions and cases where an individual member of the hearing body will go out and basically receive the full presentation from one side or another about their proposed development projects, seeing little models, seeing their engineering plans, seeing their photographs, their environmental documents, getting the full press basically. So that's that's clearly improper. And the site visit is on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's just, perception, physical observation basically. But with an allowance for some kind of, help along the way so you can understand what you're seeing. Basically, I view it as, the tour guide.
But that tour guide's probably not going to be one of the people up here testifying. You don't want that kind of a thing.
It would be best if a member of your staff sort of set it up and was able to do that for you, but it does contemplate that the landowner or one of their employees could take you around and show you the site. And the problem is so there's two problems with the due process law and how it's applied. Two problems. One is this disclosure. So it's got to be adequate disclosure, and the more you get, the harder it's going to be to fully disclose everything. And if you fall short of full disclosure, you do open up an appeal right for someone. And in a subsequent lawsuit, you might get deposed about what you really saw and did you fully disclose. And the other problem is if you get, in the terminology I use, personally embroiled in an issue, too entangled in the dispute, and become biased in not necessarily a financial bias, but personally embroiled in an issue, you could be disqualified from sitting on the hearing in the matter. And so it creates the ironic situation that the more interested you are in a project, the more likely it is you might get disqualified. Because if you come back at the beginning of the hearing and have to disclose on the record that you far exceeded just an ordinary site visit and got all kinds of information from one of the parties and were lobbied on it, you could get in a situation where you would have to recuse yourself because you're too personally involved in it and have too much information outside the record. So this is trying to strike the balance between all of those issues. And historically, the rule in this county has just been no site visits. Individually, you have to go as a group. Of course, that is not always observed in the real world, and you also have the situation where there are locations that you just drive by every day. I mean, so there's a practicality to it that, it's in your neighborhood, you drive by it every day. Also, you may be very familiar with the operation from activities before an appeal was filed, and that's perfectly okay. So you don't come into these things with no knowledge, but once a formal appeal or petition is filed before the body, they have to withdraw from that kind of activity.
Some citizens certainly claim we come with no knowledge, that's for sure.
So this is just an effort to clarify what's allowable and what's not, and in our view, up to what's legally permissible.
Okay.
And move to recommended action.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you for this. I think it's really important, particularly when I was a planning commissioner, to be able to go to the sites to look at what you're going to be making decisions on, because it really does enlighten you on the situation that's at hand. And I like what you've done here, not only giving parameters for doing site visits, but in Exhibit A, Item B, this is basically a policy I use not just for land use decisions, but any applicants that are coming before us. It reads that members of the hearing body shall avoid personal contacts, correspondence, and telephone calls concerning substantive issues relating to an agenda item outside of the public hearing, and shall inform persons contacting them to make their information or objections known at the public hearing. So I don't know, we may have certain requirements because it's land use specific, but I would think that there are potentially other requirements even when it isn't land use.
Yeah, I think that's correct. It's not unique to land use, it's just where there's a legal right involved, and you do get into this whether someone has a right to a ministerial permit. It could be just, a business license or something, or some other kind of approval. But the kind of things that the board hears or could hear, most of them are land use related, but they could be building code violations. They could be other entitlements, basically. Mm-hmm. But it's where you're acting as a hearing body, not as a legislative body.
Mm-hmm. Or even contract, awarding contracts, those kind of things too. But there are some cases also when someone has a zoning violation and they're convinced it's not really a violation, you've got to come out and take a look at it. And in those kind of situations, I've had one that I can think of. I think we brought staff along with on one of those. But how would you handle something like that?
Well, first I would look and see if there's any appeal to the board. Or
if it's going to come to you to begin with.
Yeah, if it's going to come to you, because a zoning
the potential.
Violation, well, even if it's, I wouldn't be too concerned about a potential. It's just, the real concern is if there's an actual appeal filed. And see, a zoning violation could arise in a lot of contexts where it's not possibly going to be appealed to the board. And I think the bright line test is a petition or an appeals file. Because
it could go to the Planning Commission and then be appealed to the Board of Supervisors. So if they've got an application or there's a zoning violation out that goes to the Planning Commission as a member of the Board of Supervisors, if we get involved at it, they still have that potential of appealing to the board. Is that right?
Yes. So, I mean, I think a good rule would be if it's appeal to the Planning Commission, that the Board of Supervisors should stay out of it even at that point, because even though it's technically not in front of the Board of Supervisors yet, it's in the hearing process. It's now in the quasi-judicial process.
And there's still the opportunity to do a site visit, but do it either as a full board or with staff?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, what this is saying is just you have that opportunity at any time to do a site visit, to do, or as a board, individually or as a board. So you could do it before or after an appeals filed. So this allows that.
Just not to have that personal contact and be lobbied.
The personal, basically trying to go out and mediate the dispute.
Right.
Is not proper.
Well, I appreciate, like I said, getting this in writing. It's something that we requested a little while ago for the planning commissioners, and it would affect any of the hearing bodies. So, appreciate it.
Now we have something very specific to point to in these hearings.
Okay. Thank you. It's very rare that you bring an item.
Yes, very rare.
I think I've been here 6.5 years.
Chris
and
Stevens is here to back me up on.
It's his fault.
Okay, that's it. Well, good. We'll pass your item. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 31. What was that? Which was it? Was that again? Forensic accountant is, okay. Oh, there she's, okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Powers. For the record, Kelly Shirk, County Executive Office, Human Resources. Today, the board letter before you is asking to approve a new classification of forensic accountant. This classification will help in cases in the consumer protection and fraud, real estate fraud divisions in the DA's office. These cases are typically very complex and include the evaluation and review of thousands of pages of financial documents. This classification will also assist in determining the defendant's assets, liabilities, and net worth in civil, consumer, and environmental protection cases. The establishment of this classification will enhance the DA's office ability to more efficiently investigate a growing number of criminal and civil violations, be in a position to more effectively prevent evidence and or prove violations, and more accurately assess appropriate penalties before the civil violators. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is this a regular, just an accountant they're hiring, basically, or is it a public safety person, or what is it? I mean,
it's an accountant, and
okay.
So it's represented by SEIU.
SEIU, okay.
Mm-hmm. And it's specifically for the investigation of and research of liabilities and assets.
So it's not, well, I guess you can ask that. So it's not a DA in a sense. It's working in your office, but it is an accountant with basically accounting experience. Is that what you're looking for?
That's correct, Supervisor. My name is Mike Jump with the DA's office, and the whole idea of this position is to fill a void in investigations that we currently have. Increasingly, white-collar crime is more and more sophisticated, and the typical accountant is just not the appropriate classification to do this. And we don't have an existing classification within our department that is qualified or capable of doing these really extensive, paper-intensive cases.
So you're going to go out, once you get this, you can go find that person and bring them into your office?
Correct.
Oh, I see, okay. All right.
And if I may, I'd just like to thank Kelly and her staff, Lisa and Yolanda Walker, for really digging into the kinds of qualifications that this position would have, because they did an outstanding job. It wasn't just a, let's go copy what some other county is doing. It was a really comprehensive review.
Okay. So are you going to come back then for another fixed person, or is that what you're going to do?
Actually, we have an existing vacant position in the DA's office that we will be.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You just want to fill that position.
Okay. Great. Okay. Sounds good. Appreciate that. I thought you guys were doing all that work all this time. They're just really smart DAs, you know. Thank you. I think that puts us through our regular agenda. We probably have 20 minutes. Can we do a closed session? Do we have anything that we could do in that time, Leroy, or not?
Yes, I'm sure we can make use of the time.
Okay. Good. Then we'll come back for our 10 o'clock. We'll come back out of our closed session into a very special moment for item number 19. This item has got has a little interesting twist to it. We were going to honor a close friend of the county, and Charlie Schwabauer. Charlie passed away, as you all know, a little while back, but we wanted to continue this, and I appreciate David and his Charlie's wife and everybody being here to do this. This is a resolution honoring the memory of achievements of exemplary community service of Charles Schwabauer. The Schwabauer Levens family has roots in Ventura County dating back more than 100 years. Long-term family. Charlie served for over 30 years on our Ag Policy Advisory Committee. 30 years. Somebody made a real commitment. And in the past, he has served on the Moore Park School Board as a Rotarian, celebrating his 45th year. That's commitment. And on the board of the Soils Conservation District, a member of the Grand Jury, as a county planning commissioner, and a member of the County Fair Board. To say that Charlie and his wife Mary have not contributed greatly to this county is just an understatement, and made this a much, much, much better place to live. So joining us today, we have a few people. I know that Henry Gonzalez is here, and you want to come up and bring it. We're going to start to bring some people up and make some comments up here, and then we'll go through this. And I know that Earl McPhail's here, and Rex Lard's here, and I don't know, and I know that Mary and David are also sitting out here, his wife and son. And so go ahead and let's just start. Thank you. Appreciate everyone coming for this.
Thank you, Chairman Foy. Members of the board, Mr. Powers, my name is Henry Gonzalez. I am the current Agricultural Commissioner. It is really an honor for me to be here as we pay tribute to Mr. Schwabauer. In the audience also are our Ag Commissioner staff that serve the Ag Policy Advisory Committee. In my mind, Mr. Schwabauer's life was really the history of agriculture in Ventura County, how he took bare ground and turned it into avocado, orange, lime, grapefruit, and avocado trees. That is the history of agriculture here in Ventura County. Mr. Schwabauer's life was also one of public service. Those of us that are professional public servants, well, we get paid to do what we do. It is how we make our living. But Mr. Schwabauer, he did it for no compensation whatsoever, no pay. And so today, we pay tribute to him for all his many years of service. Mr. Schwabauer was not just a public servant in his capacity on these various boards, but he also served in a leadership capacity. Not only in a leadership capacity, but for many, many years. I want to end my remarks with a couple of quotes that I think Mr. Schwabauer would appreciate. The first is right out of the Bible, and it goes like this. And whosoever of you will be the chiefest shall be the servant to all. That's Mark 10:44 if you want to look it up. And the other is from Thomas Jefferson. The print is really small, so excuse me here. I have the consolation of having added nothing to my private fortune during my public service, and of retiring with hands clean as they are empty. And those are my remarks, and again, it is an honor for me to be here and share this moment.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments for Charlie. I want to call Earl up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's a privilege and an honor to be here to speak on behalf of Charlie. I got to know Charlie with two different hats. One as the Ag Commissioner and one as a fellow board member on the Ventura County Fair Board, or Seaside Park, 31st District, whatever you want to call it. But Charlie was a joy, and Mary was obviously a joy to work with on the Fair Board. We had lots of interesting board meetings and committee meetings. But the thing that I remember about Charlie the most was that he was a very personable, gentle, kind individual. It didn't matter how upset we may have been getting about a certain subject. He always was a very calming force, always brought us back to where we needed to be in his calm manner. And Mary, you can't say enough about Mary. She's just an absolute sweetheart, as you know. And why she picked him, I don't know, but she did. I guess because she was upside down and wanted to get right side up. But he was very instrumental in getting the Derby Club built at the fairgrounds, and all of us have been there and enjoying the amenities there. And also, while he was on the fair board, he was very instrumental in getting the inside, not the outside, unfortunately, of a lot of buildings refurbished to where they actually look like a building inside. And he was very instrumental in that. But on the other hat, as the Ag Commissioner, working with Charlie on the Ag Advisory Committee, I hadn't been here a month, and I was told there was an Ag Advisory Committee, and I had to go to the meeting. Where is it? And Charlie welcomed me with open arms, and it was just an unbelievable relationship that we had together. And with Mary and David, what a super family, just absolutely super family. And it was my privilege and honor to work with him wearing both hats. And honoring him today is a real honor for him and the family. And on my behalf and my wife's and family behalf, I'd like to thank you guys for the resolution adjourning in memory of my mother and my son. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Rex?
Good morning. Chairman Foy, Mr. Powers, members of the board, I'm honored to have this opportunity to contribute a few personal comments along with others as part of your board's honoring of the life of Charles Schwabauer. As has already been enumerated by the chair and also presenters, Charles' contribution to the community with his involvement throughout most of his adult life have been exemplary. His contributions were made through a wide-ranging community activities, assisting the county in the accommodation of a population increase from 54,000 the year of his birth in Fillmore to approximately 836,000 at the time of his passing. 836,000 people at the time of his passing. A large portion of this population increase occurred in the eastern portion of the county, not far from his home north of Moorpark. In one of our numerous conversations about being a pilot, he shared with me and his son David how he found the dedication, discipline, skill sets acquired as an instrument-rated pilot had served him well in his various civic activities. Being a fellow pilot and somewhat involved in community issues at the time with the Farm Bureau, it didn't take long for me to understand the wisdom of his observation, but also for the quality of thought and the insights he employed as he gave his time and talent for the unselfish betterment of the community. He truly did understand the importance of context of the issue, how it could be addressed, and resolved in the best interest of the community at large, which he felt that he served. Although operating out of the limelight and never seeking it, Charlie was a true leader. Charlie's passing will not be the end of his legacy of leadership. It lives through the efforts of his son David, who has dedicated more than 25 years of service to Ventura County agriculture, through his involvement with the Ventura County Farm Bureau, both at the county level, the state level, and the federal level as well. Charlie's granddaughter, Brianne, is well on her way to further extending his legacy well into the future, having shown new levels of excellence with outstanding accomplishments in 4-H and in academic excellence. I thank you for the opportunity for rendering my comments. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Rex. Appreciate that. And if you didn't put a speaker card in, but you'd like to speak before I read with this resolution and call the family up, does anybody else have any comments? Okay. Welcome,
Good morning.
Mary.
I want to thank each of you for the opportunity that you have given us. One of the things we discovered when we moved out to the boonies, where the closest thing to another person was miles away, was that knowing who our legislator in the county was on a very important face-to-face level. We did that initially because being where we were, we had no voice. But we found that participating at this level in the county gave us an opportunity to let you know issues you would not know otherwise. We thank you for what you did for us in that you listened and were a sounding board in issues that needed your resolution and our input. So over these 50 years, I do thank each of you. Even though you weren't there at the beginning, the results of those issues and those individuals have been passed on to you, and we thank each of you.
Good morning, and thank you to Peter, thank you to the members of the board. Thank you as well to Rex and to Earl. Thank you to the Ag Commissioner's office and all of the staff there. We really appreciate what they've been doing as well. Brian Miller and his work on this, Peter, we thank you. I really do think that it's important, and it's really appropriate, I guess is the proper word, for my dad to be receiving recognition from this body. As my mom reiterated, with the 50 years that we've lived in Moore Park, we have always lived in an unincorporated area. And being a master sergeant in the Army truly gave my dad an understanding of place. And he understood that this was the body that represented us. And in the early days, when he was on the neighborhood council back in the 70s, when he was doing all those things, this was the body that appointed him. When he was planning commissioner, he was appointed by this body. And that was something, a consciousness that he carried all of his life, understanding who represented him in government. And so I think that really speaks to why I'm very thankful to all of you for this recognition. It's very, very appreciated. And once again, thank you to everyone for all their work. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't go. I'm going to come down and bring a resolution, but I know these other supervisors have some comments they'd like to make. Why don't you just stay here, Mary? And I'll come.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Foy. I appreciate that. I just wanted to say that at the loss of Charlie, at the passing of anyone, it's a good reminder for us that we're all going to be measured not by how much we have done for ourselves, but how much we've done for our community. And certainly Charlie's way up at the top of the ranks there, and he's imbued that in the rest of his family. So the Schwabauer family has a great reputation as being there to look out for the community overall, and he really set a great tradition for all of us and stuff. So we'll miss him, and we appreciate your continuing the long tradition and commitment to service that he's had. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and also I wish Kathy Long was here too, because I know she would want to express how much she appreciated Charlie. Not only did he give his input, but really because of that, there's a legacy. And so much of Ventura County, really, you think about farming and agriculture, I think of him. And you think about water, you think of him. And what he gave to our county, and really has made a difference. And we do appreciate so much all that time, and so glad that you're following in his footsteps too, because like you said, we need to hear, because otherwise our decisions aren't going to be as good. So just so much appreciate that he got so involved as he did, really helped Ventura County. So, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I also want to thank you so much and thank Charles for half a century of volunteerism. It takes a lot to go out and volunteer and to leave the family at nights and to go out and attend meetings and to help the community. But I didn't know Charles personally, but just hearing what was shared, by the speakers and you and your family, I commend you and commend the family, and I know you'll continue to carry that name on forward. But half a century of volunteerism is tremendous, and we want to thank you for helping Ventura County. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just to echo the comments and just thank you, because the Schwabauer family name truly is synonymous with community service, and so thank you for all you've done too. Thank you.
Let me just say, I know when I got elected, even Judy said, "You got to meet Schwabauers. Meet Charlie." Or just go meet Charlie. No, you got to meet the Schwabauers. It's not just a Charlie; it's a whole family deal, and it is. It's a family committed to so much, and like she said to me, part of what this whole East County is, and really what Ventura County is, because what your family did, and your husband did, your dad did, but what you guys have continued, and you've done so much, and you continue it, just like was told. 25 years you're doing it, and next 25 years you're going to do so much more, and you're involved in everything. But this is a perfect example of a community that gave you a lot, and you're giving back. And Charlie was a perfect example, and the gentleness that Earl and was talked about, and just a tremendous guy. And I'm for your loss, but for all of us, it's a loss. But what he did for us in this community, we're just so appreciative. So thank you very much. Let me give you this. Let's get Brian to take a little picture of all this together. Very good. Thank you. Come on, man. Oh, you get in the middle. You hold this. Not me. Not me. Not me. Not me. No, come on. You're not there. Thank you all for taking time out of your day, and thanks again. Okay. We are going to move on to our next presentation, which is a resolution proclaiming the week of July 21st, 27 as Probation, Parole, and Community Supervision Week, recognizing the professions and professions and their vital role in making our community safer. We'll have Mark. Appreciate it. Thanks, Mark.
Yes, Supervisor Foy, members of the board, Mr. Powers, thank you for this recognition. On behalf of the dedicated and hardworking members of the probation agency, I want to definitely extend my appreciation and thanks for this recognition. Every week this time of year, nationally, it's celebrated as Probation, Parole, and Community Supervision Week. And there are events like this and ceremonies like this that honor our probation professionals and the vital role that they play in our juvenile and adult criminal justice systems. So I wanted to thank you for the opportunity and the recognition. The core of probation work, in my mind, lies in our role that we play in ensuring the safety of the community and also assisting offenders in changing their behavior. And we do that a variety of different ways. It's laid out in the resolution. There are a lot of different things that we do in order to make that happen. Our jobs are tough, and I don't have to tell you. I've sat and I've talked to each one of you about the challenges that we have faced over the last 5 to 10 years. What I can tell you is that you have a probation agency workforce that has dealt with each challenge as they happen to come up, and they've handled them in a very professional manner, and they've worked really hard and dug their heels in and have produced a high level of work as a result. But our deputy probation officers and correction services officers can't do it alone. We have a core of non-sworn professionals that help us in carrying out our mission, our goals, and our objectives. Folks that work in our fiscal arena, our administration arena, our human resources arena, our clerical support. Without them, they're the glue that really holds the organization together. And without them, we could not do all the good work that we do out in the community. And of course, I do want to let you know how much I appreciate this board's support and the support of the CEO's office. Without your support behind us, it's really hard to do the things that we have grown accustomed to doing over the last number of years. So I wanted to thank you for that.
Mark, and we appreciate that. It's funny, we all sat through the Charlie Schwab Hour and how people give to their community, but people don't realize what your people are doing in this whole staff, giving back to this community that we all live in. If we didn't have you out there ensuring what these people are doing, hopefully trying to change their lives and get them back on track, this would be a completely different community. And, very smart, capable people that could do something else but choose to do this work. And sometimes the state now is making it a little tougher on some of all these people and what's happening. But I don't think we should ever take for granted why we live in a community that people like this are willing to step out and do the work that you do. And we do appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you, Mark, and your staff, for the work that you do, your dedicated work, your staff. I met with you and your staff, and you're very diligent in what you do, and you care a lot for the community. The additional work that you're taking with the realignment program is commendable, because that's a tremendous amount of work that you're doing. Working with our youth is extremely important. I remember just about a month ago, we were over at the grand opening of the Boys and Girls Club on 7th Street. And the work that your staff is doing is just tremendous, working with Boys and Girls Club on different venues, whether it's educational, whether it's sports, whether just keeping the children off the streets, our youth off the streets, is extremely important. So I commend you and your staff for the excellent work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Tough changes coming. Tough changes have come,
yes.
and I shouldn't say tough, but challenges that are out there. And we certainly recognize that, and it's off the radar screen for most people in Ventura County. I mean, it's quiet what probation does, but it's really essential. And I just admire the fact that you guys have such a esprit de corps, and you're going after it, and you're professionally approaching these challenges. So thank you very much, and thank you to everybody that's represents various parts of probation. And a lot of people can't be here, but it's one of those quiet gems out there that's very important for us here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I know sometimes it isn't quiet, and that's a problem too. You guys have to shoulder so much. I realize that, and the clientele can be so different, and the ones that are hard are a little bit harder now, and appreciate that. And that extra work you have to do for that. But also those who want to make a change. You make a difference in people's lives. You are life changers. And the idea that you have people that want to, get back and become, productive people in society and put their past behind, that they have you to help guide them on that. And the more that they want, the more that we hopefully can give to help them there. Just so much appreciate both sides of what you have to do, from both the enforcement but also very much the social aspect, because that is so key. So thank you so much for what you do. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to build off that too, Supervisor, I don't think a lot of people realize the broad scope of the role of probation officers. And I think it's very appropriate for that reason that we recognize the work that's done. And the accountability and the rehabilitative side, but the trust that you develop with your charges. And a lot of times with individuals who don't trust easily. And that takes a lot of time and effort. It takes a lot of passion, and your team certainly has that. One of the things you said to me, Chief, that really stuck with me too is in the juvenile facility, a lot of times the individuals going in there, the probation officer may be the first, or the CSO may be the first positive adult role model that they've had, and the impact that they have, and they really are turning lives around. So thank you, Chief, and then the entire agency for the work that you're doing for our community. It makes a huge, huge difference. Thank you.
And thank you for all the staff that's here today. Outstanding.
Hope you'll stick it up someplace in the wall with the two other ones, right?
Yes, we definitely will. Thank you very much. Thank you. And we're having a little reception right outside, so on a break, you're more than welcome to join us.
Is that what you did this the last thing? So
Yeah, okay, I'll take that.
Oh, you need a motion to receive in that last one? Okay. 21? Okay, continue. Continue. I forgot. I thought that was the last one I had. Okay, so we're going to move on to number 22. This is great.
Morning, Chair Foy, members of the board, Mr. Powers.
He always
for the
gets the
record,
good stuff, doesn't he?
Paul Grossgold, your Director of General Services Agency. I have the pleasure this morning to bring this item to your board, which is to request that you authorize the director or my designee to accept the donation of 5 new service flagpoles and associated labor and materials for the Veterans Memorial located here at the Government Center, and to authorize the director or my designee to oversee and approve additional modifications and donations for the Veterans Memorial, and to recognize the contributors. We have Max Vanderwick representing our veterans community here, as he often does in our boardroom. And also I would like to bring up at this time Ventura Council member Jim Monahan, who has really been the driving force behind this project, and he's going to say a couple of words to you. Jim?
Good morning, Chairman, board members, Steve, Linda, John. The only member of the board who's on our executive board is Kathy Long, and she's not here today. So you can all tell her that we're going to go ahead without her this time. But I want to thank you for what you've supported in the past. I think you've all seen the pole that's been replaced there, still dedicated in Max Vanderwick's name by the Vietnam veterans. And we have to give credit to the IBEW 952 Ventura, who are coming up with the funding for the 5 poles that we're going to put up at this time. And I was hoping they would be here, and they're not here yet because they deserve all the credit. They're doing all the work. And I'm going to have also Vista Steel is going to provide the foundations that we put in the ground to stand the poles on. And John Zerbo from Amaron is going to work with us, and who did actually purchase and donate the first pole that was installed. The Lions Club with Ken Cousins is going to help maintain the site as we're working through the process. And with that, I just want to thank you for your support. Did you want to circulate this picture? This is what it's going to look like. And this is phase 2. There will be a phase 3 when we get into the landscaping and xeriscape and improving the site. The IBEW are going to also put in all new lighting so that all the flags will be illuminated the way they should be, and improve the site, the old lights that are there now. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Are you?
I have a few more words before we ask for the vote. I just wanted to put the project in a little bit of perspective. The Photoshop photo that's going around now obviously does not exist yet, and also doesn't show some of the landscaping, and there is some landscaping as part of this phase. There's about 8,000, a little over 8,000 square feet of landscaping that is going to be put in to accommodate in conjunction with the flagpoles. And that's just the beginning of really redoing that whole memorial corner and including very nice landscaping and also drought-tolerant plants, and that whole plan is being worked on. But we didn't want to slow everything down. We wanted to get the project moving, and we'll do it in phases and really make this memorial what it needs to be, which is something that the community can be proud of. I think we stated it before, but the County of Ventura is second only to the Navy base in employing veterans. So it's appropriate that we have the County Veterans Memorial here on site, and that it be something we can all be proud of. And it's great that the community is stepping up to do this. And I want to thank again Jim and also the team. Ron Van Dyke is working hard, and Teresa Lubin, who is out sick today, is really working on the the landscaping plan, using her landscape architecture skills, and of course Glenn Hemme, who is going to is really overseeing the project to make sure that everything is in compliance with county standards. So with that, I would ask for your approval to do this project.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, when you go out to these ceremonies, I think it's just so easy for everybody to take it for granted that there's going to be a nice place that will recognize veterans and stuff, and they don't realize that Glenn has to put up the poles, and Councilmember Monahan has to coordinate a bunch of people, and GSA has to get involved with Ron and you, and guys like Max have to coordinate the fundraising at the VFW clubs, et cetera. And so if you just would pass on behalf of the board our appreciation that it's an honor for us to get to have these facilities here at the County Government Center. And we really appreciate it. And to all 5 of you and everybody else, thank you very much. Really.
John?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I want to thank Paul, again, for an excellent job, and the GSA team, and also Max and Councilmember Monahan. I've worked with them for many, many years, but I think it's a great accomplishment. That Ventura County is we honor veterans, and I think it's extremely important that people understand that. And I want to thank IBEW, Tony Skinner, and those folks, 952, Local 952, for stepping up to the plate. And Taft Electric, too, I understand, is working with us. And it's great partnership for the community to honor our veterans, and the rendering here that you have is just beautiful. This is just outstanding for our veterans, And again, I just want to share that because my family has a long history of veterans and in the military, so I just want to commend you and thank you for the good work that you're doing. Thank you.
And I also really appreciate it. I think that corner could use a little sprucing up, but also the nice volunteer effort that's putting it forward. Also, just what it says about the government center too, that we are doing things and making it look nicer. And just today, as I was pulling up, I just really realized how nice the landscaping looks, on the Johnny Johnston roadway on the entranceway there. But it does say a lot to the community. Appreciate too that it's going to be sustainable landscaping. I think that's a good idea instead of something that has to continually be pulled out of the ground and put in again and all that. This is something that can last and not use as much water, still look nice. But I think it does set an example and says a lot for the county. So thank you all for putting this together. It'll be great to be there also on the ceremonies.
Yep, and like you said, no place better than here that we as a county government to believe in our veterans. That we believe this is the place it should be, and because so many of them have a tendency not to, and I just, besides the military base we have here, I think the people of this community truly give thanks to all the efforts that were gone, for all you veterans that have given so much, so it's a great place to do it. So congratulations on making it work, and thanks guys for putting it all together and making it happen.
One final comment, Councilman Monahan alluded to it, but the Gold Coast Veterans Foundation has been a sponsor of this project from the outset, and that's a foundation that's starting to do some really great work in our community. Has fielded a one-stop shop veteran service center in the community foundation building in Camarillo. So some really good things are happening in the county, and it's nice to have this as as symbolic of that.
That's great. That's wonderful.
And Max, thank you, Max. Again.
So we have a first and a second. If we can vote and give them approval, they can start their work and get going. Love it. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Mike?
It makes the right statement about our support for our veterans, and I also want to recognize Mr. Grosco's leadership in this too, how appropriate it is that you're leading this project. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. We got veterans doing some great stuff, and now we got roads. All right. Got some great things going on roads, right?
Yes, sir.
Nothing in the East County, but no
Good
East
morning.
County roads.
Chair Foy, Supervisors, Mr. Powers, for the record, I'm Dave Fleisch with the Public Works Agency Transportation Department, And actually, before I start my presentation, I'd just like to thank you for what you just did as one of those veterans who's been employed by the county. I think it's great to be able to come to work every day and see a nice honoring tribute to the veterans that we have here in Ventura County. So thank you for your board action previously.
Never forget your service, too, so thanks.
If I could have the PowerPoint presentation, please. Hopefully. Okay, then I guess I'll do it without. Yeah, you all have the presentation. Excuse me. What I'm before you this morning to do is provide an update to the 2012 California statewide local streets and roads assessment, and in addition, provide you an update of where we are with our current paving plan and an update for that plan. In this this presentation, you'll see. Again, this is the third iteration of this biennial California Streets and Roads Assessment. It's jointly sponsored by CSAC, the League of Cities, the Regional Transportation Planning Agencies, which VCTC is for us. And the cost is covered 50% by the RTPAs, and then the other 50 is split between the cities and the county. And that costs us $625 a year for our portion of this. So you can see it's a relatively inexpensive thing for us to do. And it's a commitment that SEAC, the Engineers Association, as well as those other agencies have made in order to keep an update of where we're going with our planning and letting each of you know where we are. The 2010 study you saw a couple years ago, this is an update to that. If you look at the numbers that are there, you'll see for the cities, essentially they've stayed the same over the last 2 years with a pavement condition index of 68. The counties, the geographic counties have gone down from 64 from a pavement condition index to 62 in that 2-year period. For the actual county of Ventura unincorporated, we've gone up from 67 to 70.
Can you say explain a little bit this you're referring to in numbers the road pavement conditions?
Correct.
And looking at one axis, it's PCI.
Right, that's the pavement condition index, and that's a 0 to 100 scale that we use to identify the what condition the pavement's in. And as you look at that chart, you'll see when they're up on the higher end, over time, and the other axis is over time, and that shows you over time as pavement ages, it more quickly deteriorates the further out you go. So when you're in the pavement condition of 70 to 100, which is the very good to very good condition, you tend to get quite a bit of life out of the pavement over years without much degradation. As you start reducing down from that in the 50 to 70 or at-risk range, or the 25 to 50 poor range, or the poor to failed range, you can see how much it drops off.
That's very impressive. So we can't see the graph, but the county of Ventura is on top at 70, and at least in 2012, compared to all the other entities that you're looking at in our past county work.
Correct, and we're actually higher than that now, and I will talk about that in a couple minutes. One of the things that's interesting to note...
We're in very good condition.
Yes, we are. We're going up, actually, when everybody else is going down, so that's a good news story for us. One of the things that's important to note in this is, as you see that overall the counties have decreased, and a lot of that's because the predominant counties here in California are rural counties, and the funding that we've received over the last couple of years has gone down. And so we're fortunate in Ventura County. We have a good mix of rural and urban, and our taxes that we get in for the road fund, the highway user tax account, are able to accommodate most of what we need to do, where many of the other counties are not quite so fortunate. When you look at the statewide trends on the next slide, you'll see that 87% of the counties in 2012 have an overall pavement condition of at-risk or poor, as compared to 72% 2 years earlier. So you see a decline overall in the state, and those that are in the green or blue, as you see on that chart, the good or at-risk areas. Previously, we were at 69 overall countywide, but we are now at 70 for Ventura County, the unincorporated area. The next slide, as you see, shows the top 13 counties. Oh, perfect. Thank you for...
Is it pretty much, it sounds probably like a stupid question, It's just based on how much money you're putting into the roads, but I guess there also has to be some other factors in there.
Correct. There's, when you look at the overall pavement condition, there's a number of things you need to do. One is obviously invest in the pavement, but that's a long-term thing. So these charts are not because of something that happened in 1 or 2 years. It's been an ongoing process for most of the cities and counties for the last number of years. And if you track this from again, 2008 to 2012, as you see here, we had the 2010, it's been a consistent move down in a negative direction, and that is of concern. One of the reasons for that, again, obviously economically between 2008 and 2012, we had a downturn, and so the taxes that came in were less. We're also seeing more efficient fueled vehicles, more electric vehicles, more hybrids, and because of the majority of the funding that we get is through gas tax, although the same amount of miles may be driven, if you're using less gas, then we get less funding. And so a nationwide concern right now is how we fund road infrastructure and looking at a different way to do that other than just straight gas tax.
Let me just ask real quick, and I look over here. The ones that are green, which are good.
Correct.
Why is it that we have so many of those eastern counties? Is that less weather related, except when you go up towards the mountains, or what?
I'm not real sure exactly why those are in the condition they are. I haven't done an analysis of the other counties. I can look into that.
Well, that's okay. I was just curious. I know that Riverside and a few of those, maybe there's a lot of building went on and added some more things, but I just curious when you see there's certain green areas that are.
Right, but as you look at those on the left, that was 4 years ago. The ones on the right are current, and so you see
they've all come down. But it was interesting that they were so much. Now everybody's kind of in the same boat.
But Dave, for a coastal city, we're doing real good. I think
absolutely.
If you look at it, they're all blue compared to our green.
Right, we're real fortunate in where we are, and again, it looks a little bit on the right-hand side. Mm-hmm. We're actually at 70 in the unincorporated county. So if you just did the unincorporated roads, we'd be green on the map. But because this map, as they do it in the assessment, is the cities and the county. Mm-hmm. Again, we're only about 20% of the total road network in the county, so we can't influence everything.
And at the same time, miles driven must have been increasing too, correct?
I'm sorry?
Miles driven has been increasing at the same time that all this is going on, more use of the roads.
Yes. Yeah, just to look at how we are across the top 13 counties in the state, we're in the top 10, as you see there. And really, when you look at the urban counties and the rural counties, we're doing really well. And actually, our number is at 70 from the unincorporated perspective. Shifting from this kind of sobering report that shows how the rest of the state is, I have pretty much good news for you with respect to the unincorporated county roads. This is a look at where we are from last year to this year. And as you can see by this chart, we've gone from an overall pavement condition index of 70 in 2012 to 73 as of today. And also, when you look at this chart, you notice that we've reduced our percentage of poor roads from 5.4, or reduced it 5.4 miles from 7 to 6%. We've also reduced our fair miles 10.8 miles, and with a 2% reduction from 17 to 15%. And again, that's the goal. As you saw that curve previously, the goal is to try to stay above 70, so above that, where the curve starts dipping down.
Could I ask you to go back one? I'm sorry.
Sure.
As I was looking at that, there's a long squiggly red line at the bottom. That must be, I guess, the Yerba Buena area.
Yes, ma'am. And
am I correct that that's actually now on a list somewhere about?
That's correct.
That says a lot.
Not all 13 miles that are down there,
right.
But the portion of it that's more heavily traveled, we do have on the list to be paved.
Because that hasn't happened in many decades, I
Correct.
think.
What this map shows, this is a screenshot actually from what you can get up on County View now that shows the condition of all of the roads in the county. You can obviously drill down to individual roads. The thing that is most outstanding that you see on there is the red. And again, as this shows, we have 6% of our roads, so that's about 30 miles of roads roughly in the county that are in the port-of-failed condition. And generally, those are roads that are very low volume, short, not much usage. And we are looking to try to reduce as much of that as we can. Some of them, it's not possible. For example, there's a short stretch of Cawthorne that's about a half a mile. That's a dirt road, and the only way to get it beyond that is to pave it, and we really can't economically.
But you have to use it for your computation anyway.
Correct. It has to be part of the computation because of the whole amount.
Let me just ask before you go. When you allow roads to get into that yellow zone or red, versus keeping them in the green, it must be 2 or 3 times as expensive to.
Absolutely.
So at some point, people are saying, why don't we spend all this money to build the reds up? Because we got to keep these other ones, otherwise we're just going to fall off the cliff on that cost?
Correct, and there's a balance of worst first versus trying to keep those above 70, and we're fortunate with the funding that we have now that we're trying to eliminate as much of those in the lower end as we can. But as the funding reduces, if you can spend 10 cents a square foot on roads that are in the 75 range as opposed to $10 a square foot on those that are in the 25 range, it makes a huge difference with the budget. And so we try to accommodate everything we can. Our goal would be to get all of the red gone, but we're not ever
reality
completely
kicks
there.
in. Yeah, okay.
Just of note, what brought us up the 3 points, we've done 55.5 miles of resurfacing in the last year, and that's about 5 times what we normally do. And when I brought this to your board last year, we had the funding available, and so that's what we're doing. Again, the chart, as Supervisor Foy just mentioned, that shows where the costs are, and as you go, you can see where we are by district here. You can see that every our goal is to get the county above 70, the entire county, and the goal right now, every district but District 3 is above 70, and District 3 is right at 69, and we've got some projects actually that are underway as we speak now that will should bring them up to 70 very shortly. One of the most important highlights, and unfortunately Supervisor Bennett isn't here, so I can show him this, but we've gone from 63 to 70 in District 1 in the last year, and that's reflective of the fact that we've done 22 miles of paving in the Ojai Valley area in the last year. The project your board gave us approval to award earlier today is an additional 9 miles over that. And that's an area where we had quite a bit of problem. We've been able to apply quite a bit of resource this year and bring them up.
But Dave, we're going to correct the -3 on District 5, right?
Right. Thank you, sir. The District 4 and District 5 numbers are reflective primarily of just the algorithm the computer uses to degrade the pavement in the analysis that we do. We don't go out and assess every single road every year. So it's a computer algorithm.
But that's a very good number anyway.
Yes, you're still the highest in the county. And
one county road.
Come on.
There is a little bit of science of numbers in this, in that the smallest amount actually, Supervisor Foy, is at 38 miles in your district. In terms of the total quantity of miles.
Don't have a lot either, no.
The largest amount is in District 3 with 161 miles. So
is there a listing of that?
It's not particularly in here, but I can go through those. District 3 has 30% or 161 miles. District 1, 28% or 152 miles. District 2, 26% or 142 miles. District 5 has 51 miles or 9%, and District 4 7% at 38 miles.
I get the least miles.
So,
yes.
And Kathy's got the most, but she's way up in those Rooney miles, less road traveled, right?
Yes. Just pointing out, Supervisor Bennett, we've done a tremendous increase in District 1 this year.
I realize that, and I need to point out to everybody that the oldest streets need the most work, and the older areas. I'm serious about that. I know we tease about that some, but those older streets are just going to be more expensive and more difficult to maintain and stuff. So,
correct.
But I'd imagine the people in Ojai small city with that many miles of streets being done, that's got to be really helpful for them.
Yes, we've received a lot of very positive comments
yeah,
from throughout the county, but particularly up in the Ojai area, because we have done so much work in the last year. And the city of Ojai actually has done quite a bit of paving. We've actually assisted them in getting some paving done as well through a cooperative agreement.
It's worked really well. The city of Ojai is doing it at the same time that we're doing the unincorporated, so it's really creating a nice feel up there and stuff.
So moving on to an update of the current plan, which the plan your board approved last year, an update for this year. And I apologize if this is a little bit confusing on this slide of what it means. I'll try to explain it in a way that makes a little better sense. I mentioned that we've paved 55 miles in the last year. The majority of that was actually cleanup of our previous plan. About 5 or 6 miles of that was new roads that were from the plan your board approved last year. But the majority of that 55 miles was finishing up our previous plan. Currently, there are about 14 miles of the Priority 1 roads your board approved last year that are under design and construction that will be completed by the end of the year. In addition, there's another 10 miles that were in the Priority 2 to 5 category that are included with that. So there'll be about another 24 miles of paving that will be completed by December. And I'll explain why we made that adjustment of not doing just all the Priority 1 roads. The remainder of the Priority 1 roads, which is about 10 miles, will be combined, and those will be done as we continue on in the next phases of the plan. So the example that I'll give you to show this is what was in our plan previously is we just did everything based on condition by priority, essentially. When we started looking at those, it seemed to make more sense to consolidate them geographically where we could. So this is an example of what was in the plan last year. This is in Camarillo. There's a couple little islands that we have in Camarillo, and you see here we had a mixture of 1, 3, 4, and 5 priority roads. And if we did this as based on priority, we'd be in there 4 different times paving over a 4-year period. What we've done is consolidate geographically where it made sense. And so what you now see is something that looks like this. That's we're going to get that area done in one shot, go and do all the roads. And a couple places we've added, we've had every road but one in an area that we were going to do. We just did that remaining road as well because it made sense to get in and get it all done.
That makes a lot of sense because you have the equipment, you have the materials, you have everything there.
Correct. And fortunately, we have the funding that we can do this. When you have limited funding, you really got to pick one road at a time. But because we
But it also is beneficial for the future, too, because they'll probably age about the same time, so you can continue doing that.
Absolutely. So we're going to, as this plan plays out, we will have geographic areas then that will all be essentially of the same age and theoretically should stay at a similar condition as they degrade. So we'll have an ability to manage it this way in the future as well.
Good idea.
Now, in addition to doing all this, one of the great things we've been able to do is we went back and assessed where our funding was. And based upon some additional efficiencies we've had in our funding and some other things we've captured, we've added an additional 35 or almost 35 miles of roads to the plan over what your board approved last year. And we did that primarily by looking at our funding. We took our assessment that we did from a planning perspective for the plan and compared that to what it actually cost us to do the construction, and we found it was about $1.5 million cheaper. Because the planning assessments are plus or minus 25%. We don't get into the detail at that point. So that's $1.5 million. Your board approved several months ago the final payment from Cal State Channel Islands of about $440,000. When that money came in and I asked for that to be transferred, I found out that we actually had an additional $1.5 million of funding we had gotten through that process that we had not transferred into the road fund for work that we'd already done on Lewis Road. So we've brought that in as well. And then again, when I brought the TDA letter to your board a few weeks ago, we had about $500,000 of that we plan to use for streets and roads. So all that rolls up to almost $4 million that we can apply back to the roads. We're continuing to try to take the money that we have in our road fund down from a higher where we need to be. So when you look at this and the plan, we're going to be spending about $24 million on the road network in the next 4 years, about $6 million a year, as opposed to about $2 million a year, which is what our historic average has been.
Can you use any of that for sidewalks? Legally? I just mean legally.
Right now, the way our ordinance is, that maintenance is being done is a requirement for the property owners. What we have discussed previously is what we've been doing on most of our paving projects is to allow the property owners to use our contractor to do the sidewalk repairs. And when we do that, we take advantage of our contractor being there, and they're essentially getting the repairs for about 25-30 cents on the dollar from what it would take them if they went on their own.
That is spectacular to get that low of a bid compared to if they just went out and tried to do it themselves?
Absolutely. And in fact, we're tracking toward trying to do that process a couple of times a year throughout the county using our job order contract without doing paving. So we'll try to set up a process where we can avail that, let the citizens take advantage of that. So while they're still having to pay, we're providing a methodology for them to do that.
But legally, just in terms of the, colors of money issue, the colors of money allow for those funds to be used?
Well, the road fund is for road purposes, and so bike paths and sidewalks are road purposes.
Okay,
so
thanks.
As far as I know, we could use them for that.
Mm-hmm. Should probably get out of that red, though, before we go down that path, right?
So what you received with your board package, and we also provided to your staff several weeks ago, is the amended paving list from 1 to 5. And there are some roads, again, that were removed from the previous plan, and there's roads that were added. The roads that we removed from the plan are those that were typically in the high 70s to mid 80s that were looking at a slurry seal, and we felt that we could go a few more years before we did that and apply that funding to try to bring those roads that are in the lower condition up so that we get the entire county up above 70. Then we can really focus on maintenance of that over the long-term period.
So Dave, if you slurry seal a road, how much additional life do you give that?
Depends upon what condition it's in, but you can extend it anywhere from 3 to 5 or 7 years of that road by applying a surface. Now, we're also looking at some different methodologies for microsurfacing, not only slurry seals, but some other treatments. We've got a project actually we're going to be doing later on this year that's kind of a two-phase process where we're going to put a heavier microsurface down that's rubberized, and then about 3 years from now overlay that, and that gives us a much better base which will last quite a bit longer. So we're looking at some technologies like that where we can really try to extend the life of the pavement.
And by doing that, you can work on other roads that really need some additional
help.
Yeah. Okay.
The rubberized asphalt's really appreciated because it's also quieter too.
Correct.
Could I ask, you are saying you're looking at $6 million a year being able to spend on the roads?
For the next 4 years, yes, that's roughly.
And what you normally spend how much a year?
About $2 million.
Okay, that's significant.
So
also, a few years ago, maybe before you were here, the Board of Supervisors, when we were looking at our general plan, I believe it was, commented that when you're doing a repaving of a road, where possible, make the bike lane wider to allow for cyclists. I don't know if that ever got memorialized in any kind of document. I don't know if you are aware of that.
I'm not specifically aware of that. I do know that we have a number of bike lane projects, and we have one of those that's in conjunction with a paving project now where when we are paving, we try to add the bike lane as well. So we've got the bike master plan. We've got that list that your board approved through the strategic master plan that we did that has those prioritized, and we're including those as we can through those projects. So one of the things that we've done differently in the last 2 years is instead of just going in and putting the same pavement down where we were before, when we go into an area, we look at drainage issues, we look at sidewalks, curb and gutter. We've had a couple of examples up on Oso Road and Rockaway on 2 of the projects that we did up in the Ojai area. We got rid of 2 long-standing drainage problems by doing some redesign and some adjustments of the road surface as we were paving in those areas. And so those are areas where we've chronically had problems that we've been able to mitigate a portion of that.
Yeah. And I know it was a separate vote of the board, so maybe I'll be able to find it.
So I wanted to clarify. So you're saying you don't know you're not aware that that's a specific direction of the board?
I'm not aware of that specifically. I will go back and look.
If you don't feel like you have it, I'm happy to have us redo that, because I think it just, with the whole climate change movement, the issue of alternative transportation, et cetera, the biking just, I think we have to make sure that we do everything we can to keep Ventura County bike friendly.
Absolutely.
And it's these getting from city to city is really going to be an issue from that standpoint. If I could, while we're interrupted, could you help me with review the financing with us here? You said we normally have been doing $2 million a year. We're going to go to $6 million a year.
Correct.
Right? for the next 5 years. What is sustainable? What can we do, and what do we need to do? I think it's just great that our unincorporated area is in the good category and not the at-risk category. I think we have a real responsibility to do everything we can to keep it there. So how are we getting, we're taking some, we have a balance that we just weren't spending it fast enough, right? It built up in the road fund.
Yes, sir.
And now we're spending that down?
Yes.
So I appreciate that, but what will we do after that 5-year period? What will we go back to 2 million?
Pending any significant changes in how we get funding, yes. Okay. And that's an ongoing challenge, again, at the national level and the state and local level. Again, the local streets and roads assessment, if you read the details behind all of that, that's part of what the state is saying is we have a funding issue. Right. So it's going to be a problem. We just have forestalled it for about 4 years for us, or actually maybe 6 or 7, because we're going to get the pavement up. So we're looking at all the technologies we can. We're looking at everything we can to try to extend the life of our pavement so we don't have to do significant rehabilitation so often. But it will be a problem as we move down in the future.
It just, I mean, one of the beauties is knowing, number one, we're going to have a significant effort for a while, and we have time.
Yes.
I think that I would like to ask the CEO and suggest to the board members that we ought to start thinking about how can we start to build to the point where we have ongoing funds so we're not at $2 million a year. I'll give you an example. I mean, at the city of Ventura, I said, they said, well, we don't have enough money for pavement. I said, well, just let's say every year we're going to take an extra couple $100,000 and add it to the road maintenance fund so that you get 5 years down the road, now you've got an extra $1 million, and then 10 years down the road you got an extra $2 million. And so you gradually build, so it's not a huge hit on the budget, but it's a building so that you don't find yourself saying, well, it's going to be every 80 years. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating for the public and us if right. You can't keep the roads better than that. So, it's not a board action at this point in time, but I just want, as we come up on the budget next year, I'll be coming back and revisiting this with the idea of saying we don't have to hit the budget hard next year. But if we start chipping away at this thing 5 years from now, we could have something to supplement or offset so we don't go from $6 million back to $2 million. Right? Okay.
Understood, and we'll work with transportation to do that.
Thank you.
That fund is not a reserve, it's just a capital fund.
It's the road fund when we get when we get our gas tax money in, or any money that comes in for road purposes, it comes into there. We've had a number of things happen in the last 2.5 years that have built that fund up. We had some 1B funding that came in. We had ARA. We had a lot of reimbursement for projects that we had
additional money
had done previously. Plus, the state withheld. You may recall they withheld the gas tax we were getting 40 cents on the dollar, and we got all of that, and it all sort of came in at once. So our road fund balance was up near $40 million last year at this time. It's a little right at about $32 million now, and I'm projecting to bring that down into the teens by the work that we're doing. Because the money's there, that's what we should be spending.
But in the meantime, you're doing a tremendous amount of work.
Yes.
Let me ask you, I think Steve brings up a good point with this. After your 4 years of all this work you're going to do, or 5 years, whatever it was, where do you see the roads being? Oh, am I heading? Okay.
That's a perfect segue to where we expect to be, and that's where I see us in 2017. We will be at 76 countywide. All of the districts will be at 75 or above.
Okay. And then with the $2 million that you'll have, what would that do once you're at 75 or whatever? How would that be? I mean, what's that kind of analysis?
That's a great question, and I haven't done that analysis yet, but it's something I need to.
Because, I mean, if you did that analysis, you came back and said, if I could do $2.5, $3 million, something like, we just say that we never allow ourselves, because it may be spending a little bit of money, just a little bit, like you said, a couple $100,000, whatever it is, $500,000 come out of our general fund, going into roads so that we keep that we know we're going to save millions over the years by not letting the roads deteriorate so far.
Correct.
It'd be a great analysis to hear that from you.
And I have that on my do list to do, and we'll bring that back.
But in 2017, we need to add another very in that, a very good twice. Look at the numbers, great.
Absolutely.
And if I could add, Supervisor Foy, to that we basically say, well, what's the road fund have? What's their gas? What do we get for gas tax? But I do think philosophically, people's property tax, it is appropriate for some property tax to go to roads. I think, people pay good property tax, and I think they have an expectation that the roads would get some of that, so for
And I
us to
think that
dedicate
it's
some of our funding.
taking us wise, because like you had said, if you were here, it said, some of that only costs 10 cents a foot to do versus $10 a foot. Let's don't let it get into that
Exactly.
$6, $8, $10 by spending a little bit. I think you're right.
Spend a little bit early is a lot
Yeah.
better than spending it.
Slurry seal and so forth.
And also, when you have some funds available like you do now, if you spent something like $500,000 on sidewalks, you could probably not have to go back there for another 20, 30 years. I mean, it's a big bang for your buck when you can get it done for so less. Just have a sidewalk event in the county, not something you have to do regularly, but it's just one-time thing, and it could make a long-time difference. And you talk about the whole issue with sustainability and climate change, and being able to safely walk on sidewalks is a lot of the way people get to work and get to schools, and it's not something we should put off if we have the ability.
Just in summary, where we were and where we're going, again, if you look at these 4 graphs that are up here, the far right is the plan as proposed for your consideration. The one immediately to its left is where we would be based upon the plan I provided you last year. So the update of adding the additional 35 miles of road will push us up, as you can see. And again, over 3/4 of our roads will be in a very good condition by 2017.
So it looks like when you're 7, with all this money spent, you're only going to 5 on that. There's some of those roads, you're just going to say, it's not worth me spending millions of dollars. It's not our analysis to do that.
Correct.
It's not enough people are driving on them to make a difference compared to the rest.
Correct. Or they may have a structural issue that we just can't fix without a ton of money.
Yeah, and so there's a balance on some of that.
But as you look at that, that's about 25 miles worth of roads, and we can identify which ones those are and where they are. And
But I mean, you go from this year or last year from 17 to 3 in that fair. That's a tremendous increase over the next. That's going to be great. That's big. Yeah.
What a difference, because I remember Butch standing here saying we're going from like a 20-year to an 80-year cycle throughout the entire county, so it's just really good to see.
I can only tell you that I'm just fortunate the money came when it did.
I was going to say, it worked out good for you.
Yeah, it was good for me, but it's not. It's really for the county. I mean, the money came in. We're just looking at using the resource that we have and trying to apply it the best that we possibly can across all of the road network that we have. Understand also that the funding that we're dealing with here not only deals with road paving, and also deals with bridge repair and a number of other things. I'm hoping to bring your board a status of our bridges in the county in the fall. I know you've seen a number of things in the press recently. We're in fairly good shape bridge-wise, but I hope to bring you a more detailed report on that and give you an idea where we think we need to be going with bridge.
And if you'll get back with us as soon as you can about your understanding of the bike policy.
Absolutely.
That's one of those things that does not cost very much while you're there.
Right.
But to go back and try to add, the shoulder and stuff is.
My recollection, it was part of the general plan, so it was probably RMA folks that were in the room at the time when we made the motion.
We'll go back and check that and confirm either it's there and make sure we're adhering to that, or come to you with it.
Thank you.
But, Mr. Chair, besides having the money, too, it's good on staff work, too, so I think it's important, too.
I'd like to point out the folks who really do most of this are Ben Amami and Howard DeLeon, who are both sitting back there. And,
it's good work.
They focus on this all the time. You ask them a road, they can tell you which road and where it is, and we spent quite a bit of effort to get us to this position, and we'll do our absolute best to make it.
Because you can have a lot of money and do poor work, but we have money and doing good work. Yeah, thank you.
Doing the right work.
And just also realize, just because there's a lot of paving going on, the tremendous amount of coordination with the residents who all have a question about their particular road that's being repaved, and I just really appreciate your staff. So much of our time is spent together, so just really appreciate the good work that they're doing, and really going out there. Someone complains, they're out in front of their house and talking with them. It's just a really good service, so thank you.
I will note that although we're doing 5 times the work we normally do, we haven't added any staff to do that. Our design and construction staff are the same folks. What we've been able to do is use inspectors from other departments within the Public Works Agency as we've built up, because they've had a slowdown in some of their work just from a timing perspective. So we've been able to keep other employees from the agency working through our projects as well, which is just another good thing that we can do.
Good Public Works Department.
As I say, that's great coordination,
Sharing,
too.
yeah.
That's great.
Good partnership.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so
Make a motion to approve.
you want to make a motion? There it is. So we'll make a second here, and we'll just... I guess those asphalt plants in this county are going to be busy here over the next couple of years.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's our final item. Yes, and so we're going to go to closed session. We have an announcement out of closed session?
No announcements out of closed session.
And we'll
Supervisor
adjourn out of
Foy,
closed session.
if I could, just before we go into close, I'd just like to remind people about the Matt Becker situation that I mentioned this morning. I just think it'd be really great to have him know, as he's there. They have the service this Saturday so whatever we can do, if we can do it by Saturday, it'd be really great for him. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll adjourn out of closed session.